be talking about that.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I think that'll be very interesting. So we'll be taking a break for a couple months, and then we'll be back doing community coffees again. And today we have Darcy to talk about for Veterans Day, her experiences in the Air Force.
Yep. Um, I was in the United States Air Force from 1983 to 1987. And I want to talk just a little bit about what led me to do that. Actually graduated in 1981, and I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I came from a family of nurses, and my mom and my aunts just kind of encouraged me to go that route. They were um, so I did the LPN because I wasn't really sure that's what I wanted to do. And back then, LPNs were highly used, and thought, okay, I'll try that for a year and see if that's something I like. But one of my classmates, her name is Donna Stone, she enlisted in the Air Force, and that really interested me. And I really thought she was really brave because up until that point, I had never, like, no upper classmates had females had ever enlisted into the Air Force. Some, usually a couple of guys from every class would go, but I had never known a female to go. And so I I couldn't, when Diane asked me to talk today, I couldn't, I remember Donna had a big impact on me making the decision to go in, but I couldn't remember what inspired her to go in. And so I asked her just recently what inspired her to go in. And she said that, and I remember this now, that we had an Air Force band came to our school. I graduated from Arweva, and an Air Force band came to our school and put on a little program, and it was kind of a recruiting tool. And she visited with them there and decided that she wanted to go to school but wasn't sure how she was going to pay for it, and decided that was going to be her way of doing it. And she actually made a career out of it. She retired, I think it was 27 years. She retired as a major, so she went and got her degree. And she worked more administrative. But anyway, when she went off to basic training, I kept in contact with her, and she was loving it. She was loving everything about the Air Force. And so it just made the desire for me to want to do it even more. So I go to LPN training, and I kind of bring it up to my mom and dad that I think I'm interested in doing the Air Force. And they were, I used, I had a few harebrained ideas in my day, and so I don't think if they knew how seriously to take me on it, and if it was just something, a phase I was going through. And so they made a deal with me to finish LPN school and work as a nurse for like 6 months, and if I still wanted to do it, they would talk with me about it. So that's what happened. I graduated from LPN training, and I went and worked at the VA hospital in Des Moines, which was kind of planned on my part. But I thought, okay, I'll go find out what these veterans say about it. And it was a great experience. They all spoke so highly of their experiences, and it was a pleasure to take care of them. And it just inspired me to go in that much more. So that's what I did. I went in. I believe it was March 28th of 1983. And you go to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas for your basic training. And at that time, it was 6 weeks long. I was just kind of doing some research, and I believe it's like 7.5 weeks now. But as soon as you get there, they're yelling at you. And that was probably the hardest thing about basic training, is just how much, disciplining they're doing with you. And I had actually gotten myself in pretty good shape physically. That really wasn't a challenge. I think the most we ever had to run was like 1.5 miles, and so many like sit-ups in a minute, so many push-ups. It wasn't, in fact, I think if you'd even Google it, I think it says that the Air Force basic training is the easiest of all the military branches, and I would say that's probably true. I I would have to agree with that. But it's still, like I said, the yelling at you and just the discipline of it was probably the most difficult thing. Right away, they grant you your fatigues and your Air Force dress blues and show you how to wear your hair. That's proper for the military. And the guys, we had like a brother flight. We had our own squadron, and then we had a brother flight as well that we would like march with quite often and go to classes with. And so they all, got their hair cut and you go through physical and just different appointments. You do classes. Well, you would get up in the morning about 5 o'clock, have reveille at 5 o'clock, do exercise for about an hour, then go to breakfast. As you would come into the dining room, there would be, I remember vividly, there would be a mirror right there, a full-length mirror, and there would be a drill instructor there, and they would teach you how to salute, and you'd have to watch yourself, stand at attention, and salute. And so we all got better at it as the 6 weeks went along. But anyway, then you sat and we probably had 20 or 30 minutes to eat. And we all had to stand. You had a table of 4, and everybody had to stand at attention until all chairs were filled, and then you could sit and eat together. And I don't remember. I think you had to have permission to talk if you wanted to have any discussion at your table. Otherwise, it was pretty quiet when we ate. And then we had classes throughout the day for Air Force history, just kind of what's expected of you in uniform, and just Air Force lifestyle. We also had some people, and I think you were just drawn out of a hat. Some people had kitchen duty. Others had to work on the grounds. I actually had to do security duty at night with, I believe it was 2 hours at a time. And you just kind of had to go around your complex and make sure everything was secured and everybody was in bed. And anyway, but everybody had a job they had to do through the day. And then we had, everywhere you went, you marched. On Sundays, we all got to go to church, and you marched there. And we had squad leaders, and I have a picture up here. There was about 40, 45 girls in our group, and we lost a few girls along the way. A couple of them found out they were pregnant when they got there, so then I don't know if it was a liability thing or something, but they could no longer go through basic training anymore. A couple of them got sick and weren't able to continue on. But for the most part, I think we lost about 4 or 5 of them. And anyway, but about a week or 2 into it, I remember my drill instructor's names. The female was Sergeant Montgomery, and the male was Sergeant Fuquay. And he called me up to the front of the squadron, and he said, Airman Branning, what did you do before coming to the Air Force? And I said, I was a nurse, sir. And he said, you took care of human lives? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, you're now a squad leader. And so I had to, but it wasn't that much responsibility. We would just help with marching and just make sure that the people that we were responsible for had their areas cleaned and looked well in their uniforms. And so it really wasn't that hard, but everything you were nervous about when you were there. So I wanted to make sure I did it right. Anyway, you go through an obstacle course. That's like your 5th or 6th week that you're doing that at the end. And that's about a mile long, and you have, I think it's like 14 different obstacles along the way. Like 4 of them are over water, and you would pass. You didn't have to succeed through all 14 of them. I think you could fail at 3 of them. But if you didn't do well, you had a second chance to do it. But I think everybody in our group got through it without any problem. Anyway, we did that, and then I guess we had a day when we were getting close to graduation. We had a day where we could go into San Antonio with our brother flight and just take in the sights of San Antonio. We had a dance we could do, and then that was kind of our celebration. And then everybody went off to your tech school. And I had known before, I think everybody knows before you go into the Air Force or military, what your job is going to be. And I had known that I was going to be a surgical technician. And I believe all the medical stuff went to Wichita Falls, Texas, Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. So I went there for 8 weeks for surgical tech training. And it was a whole different environment there. As soon as you got off the bus there, nobody was yelling at you. It was like you were in college almost. Your dorm, I mean, when you went to class, of course, you marched to class, you wore your fatigues, or in the medical, we all had our whites, our uniform whites to wear. So we'd march in those. But when we were done with class for the day, then we could go back to our rooms and change into civilian clothes. And there was like a courtyard there we could hang out in and study, or, I don't play Frisbee, whatever. I can't remember what y'all did, but you could socialize. It was very relaxed. And anyway, did 8 weeks of that. And while I was in tech school, you could fill out a dream sheet where you wanted to get stationed at. And I had put everything overseas. I didn't, because I thought, I'm from Iowa. I hadn't, farm girl from Iowa. And I, honestly, when I was in basic training, I felt a little, I had to grow up really quick. Like, I felt really naive when I was with all these girls from like New York City and Detroit, and I thought, wow, I haven't been exposed to very much. And so I thought I wanted to go out in the world and, just see what was out there. And so I put all these military bases overseas. And when I found out what I got, I had Colorado Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. And I was kind of disappointed. And there was a girl in my class who had Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, and she really didn't want that. So she and you could swap. And we were talking about swapping, and one of my instructors took me aside and said, I don't think you realize that the Air Force Academy is one of the premier bases. Like, you are so lucky to have it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was very glad for his advice, and so I took it and went to the Air Force Academy. And then that's where I was stationed for the remainder of my time. And it was a wonderful experience. The academy itself, it's like, I looked it up to see how many acres it is. It's pretty impressive. It's 18,500 acres. The base is 6,700. But anyway, it's pretty enormous, and there's lots of, you can hike, you can fish, you can do just about anything outdoors on base. And up on some of the hiking trails, there's lakes up there that you can kayak on or fish or just, sit and relax. It was pretty beautiful. And anyway, so there was, took in everything Colorado, did the skiing and whitewater rafting, just everything that Colorado had to offer. While I was there at the academy, Ronald Reagan came and spoke at it was the 1984 graduation for the Air Force Academy cadets, and that was pretty awe-inspiring. Of course, everybody had to go through some type of security, and the cadets were all on the field. But when Hail to the Chief came on, and the cadets are all standing and saluting, it brought tears to your eyes. It was pretty cool to be a part of that. Anyway, we would every summer. I was never in any form of combat whatsoever. And we would practice in the summer times. We would set up MASH units out into the mountains. And so, for military readiness. So we were ready in case we were ever needed. And we would perform, like casualties and perform as if we were getting in patients from the war area. But I was never exposed to anything other than training. That we would do that every summer, and then that was my experience with MREs as well, the meals ready to eat, and those. I'm glad I only had to eat those, short time in the summer because they were fine, but and there's some of our soldiers have had to survive on them, and so I appreciate what they've gone through. But anyway, that was pretty neat. Also, at the Air Force Academy, you really didn't have a lot of interaction with the cadets at all. A lot of people in the community, some of the doctors that I worked with, you would sponsor cadets, and the cadets could stay in their homes like on the weekend. If they wanted to get away, kind of have a home away from home, they would, they sponsored a cadet or two every year. And so there was a doctor that I house sat for often, and they called them their pet cadets. And they had two of them, and then that's the only way I ever really got to meet any cadets is through those type of interactions. Otherwise, in our surgery there, we had general surgery, orthopedic, we did OBGYN, ENT. We did some urology cases, and most of our surgeries were done on either retirees. It was a pretty heavy community of retirees, and then the Air Force cadets. Many of them for any knee injuries or shoulder surgeries or anything like that. But I do remember one day when we were all leaving, they were bringing in, it was a man, he had been a parachute instructor, and they were out flying or jumping that day, and somehow or another he had gotten caught in some type of wind, and his chute went underneath him, and he fell several hundred feet without his chute. And so they brought him in to us, and we were not equipped for this, but everybody was wanting to save his life, but we cracked open his chest, and his aorta had been torn from his heart, so there was really nothing that we could do for him. But that was the saddest thing I saw, obviously, when I was there. And he was he was maybe in his 40s. He was not a very old man at all. But otherwise, our stuff was pretty routine, what we did. I put down a couple of notes so I don't forget. Oh, one of the things that we were always encouraged to do is work medical coverage at their sporting events. So I really like football, so I chose to work medical coverage at the Air Force Falcons football games a lot. And it was just in the crowd, so it wasn't with the players at all. But that was a great experience too. But also did hockey games and basketball. Anyway, it was fun. It was just great experience. I was going to just say, also, I wanted to bring up, in 1983, when I went in, the percentage of women that were in the military was like 8.5%. And today, it is like 17%. Which I was kind of surprised it's not a little bit more than that, honestly. But the Air Force has typically had the highest percentage of females are usually in the Air Force. The lowest is in the Marine Corps. One of the things that from the Air Force Academy, you could see, there's actually there were 3 military bases in Colorado Springs when I was there. At that time, it was Fort Carson, which they trained a lot for combat there. And then there was Peterson Air Force Base, which is actually now known as Peterson Air Station. And then there's like a Slifford air station for them. That since technology has increased, they've kind of switched their mission, I guess. And then there is Cheyenne, at Cheyenne Mountain, there is their Special Space Force station there that they house NORAD and another type of defense system. And I looked that up just a little bit because you could always see the antennas from the Cheyenne Mountain from Colorado Springs, or from the academy. And it said that it was built during the Cold War to monitor North American airspace for missile launches and Soviet military aircraft. It's situated under 2,000 feet of rubble, and it was designed to house critical government and defense functions. So it was kind of, in case of a nuclear strike, it said, when you saw that, you kind of realized, well, this is really serious here, what we do. You kind of take for granted that we're safe all the time, but there's a lot of people who work very hard to keep us safe. Anyway, I then got out in '87, and honestly, missed it very much at first. And I think what I treasured most about my time in the military was there was a camaraderie there that I don't think I've ever felt anywhere else. Everybody's away from home. No one's in their hometown. Everybody's a stranger, and so you really become like family to each other, and that was neat. And anyway, I really did miss that at first. It took me a while to get acclimated to civilian life again, honestly. But when you get out, you do owe 2 years of inactive duty to the military. And I was in Omaha, so every year I had to go to Offutt and just, I think we had to do physical, like we had to still do our run and do what we had to do in the military. Every twice a year, we had to complete a 1.5 mile run and do so many sit-ups and so many push-ups in a minute. And when I got out on inactive status, had to go in, make sure they had my correct address and make sure I had passed the physical and still be able to, and be the certain weight, and then still be able to do those physical exercises. But yeah, I guess that's about it. It was a pleasure to serve, and it's one of those things that as I've gotten older, I've treasured it even more. And even though I have a lot of patients, who come in with their veteran caps on, and I always thank them for their service. And I have no idea of the military that they knew. I can't even try and compare myself to what they did, but I always thank them for the military service. And when I share with them that I was in the military as well, and I always tell them I was never in combat, they don't care. They're very thankful for your service. And that's another thing I looked up. It said like 6 to 7% of the American population has served in the military. So I actually thought it would have been a little bit more than that, but it was a great experience, and I'm really thankful for it. So, anybody have any questions?
Did you get paid while you were at the Air Force Academy? I mean, did they pay you monthly or?
Yep.
Do you remember how much that was?
I don't. I went in.
I was looking to see how much, and they said something about like $1,100 per month or something.
Yeah. I went in.
One or two about the Armed Force, any of the Armed Forces.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Benefits while you were in too, right?
What's that?
Benefits?
Yeah, yep, yeah. And I got credit for my college credits for nursing. And so I went in as an airman first class as soon as I graduated from basic training. Then I was an airman first class. Otherwise, you're just initially an airman basic. But because of the college credits I had, I could be an airman first class, which I believe was then an E2. I think when I got out, I was an E3. I was just sergeant. There's airman basic, airman first class, senior airman, and sergeant. And I got out at sergeant and E4. And so your pay goes according to the different levels too. I just don't remember what it was. I lived the first year or year and a half, I lived in the barracks, which were just really, they were like dorms. And then the remainder of the time I lived in a house with a couple other gals. And in fact, they were nurses that I worked with, and one of them was a captain, and she had actually bought a house, and a couple of us just rented from her. But yeah. I really don't remember what I made. It was adequate. I know that. I had to, we did have to do a call. We had call, I think it was like 2 nights a week, and then every so many weekends. So we had to go in surgery and maybe do an appendectomy or a C-section or like gallbladder removal, or, something like that. But we didn't get paid extra for that. Today, in the civilian world, you'd get paid extra for that kind of stuff. So anyway, we had probably every couple of months, we would have a military exercise where they would, like on a Saturday, call you up, and then you had to respond to the base within probably half an hour. I can't even quite remember the time, but and you had to be in your fatigues and ready to go if you were going to be sent out on something. But they just, it was for military readiness. We would have to do that. Otherwise, it wasn't really intrusive in your life outside of your work. But anyway. So.
Would you recommend it to other people, the military?
I would, yeah. I would. I have spoke a little bit with Janet Gritton, because her daughter, Israel, is in the Army. And from what I understand, she loves it and doing very well. So I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
So is there still some marching at home every once in a while? Some of those habits might be hard to break. We're marching to lunch tonight.
Anyway, no, it was really a great experience. I'm very thankful for it.
You want to tell us about your jacket, what all those things are?
Yeah. So anyway, so the 3 stripes and a star is that's for sergeant. Is it one stripe is airman basic, 2 without the star. 1 stripe is airman basic, 2 stripes with no star is airman first class. 3 stripes with no star is senior airman, and then with the star, it's sergeant. And then the patch here is just the United States Air Force Academy, just the patch that signifies which base you're at. Obviously, Branning, that was my maiden name, and this was just the patch for the military or the medical branch that I was in, and then obviously U.S. Air Force there. So I just have a couple of pictures here from our squadron from basic training, and then the class that I was in surgical tech training with, and then just some pictures from basic training and a couple of them from the Air Force Academy. Had to take a class before you got, before I became a sergeant. Then you're considered, at sergeant, you're considered a non-commissioned officer. And so enlisted ranks is those who go in, without a college degree, a 4-year college degree. If you go in with a 4-year college degree, then you are an officer, and then you go through a whole different type of basic training for that. But in enlisted, you're considered a non-commissioned officer when you become a sergeant, and so you have to go through a class for that. And I did that. There was a group picture of that as well, and I honestly can't even remember now what that was all about. But anyway, it was good.
Medals there for all your awards?
Yeah, I don't even remember what they're all for. I know this one here is just everybody gets it when you get out of basic training. There was a good conduct. One of these is a good conduct medal. One is, yeah, that's good conduct. And, oh, I don't even know what this one is. Meritorious achievement. I don't know, I did something good. Yeah. I don't know what.
You could have made up a story.
Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, just when you went through the tech school training, then you took a certification also. So I was a certified surgical tech, which does make it, when I got out, I moved to Omaha and I worked as a surgical tech at Methodist Hospital for a while first. And then I did find that I missed the patient contact, and I found nursing is exactly what I wanted to do. So I got the RN, and when I was in, they had, at that time, the Education Assistance Program was called the VEAT program, Veterans Education Assistance Program. And for every dollar you put in, they put in $2. So I put in $3,500. They put in, that was the maximum amount. They put it in $7. And then I got to use that towards my education when I got out. So yeah, that was, back then, that was a good chunk of money. Anyway.
What other jobs have you had now since then that all this training has helped you to get to what are the places? I mean, I don't know that everybody knows all of what you've done here.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, when I got out of the Air Force, I worked at Methodist Hospital in surgery, and it was great. Worked with a great group of people, but I just found that I missed the patient contact. So I worked. Actually, it was Mercy Care Center. It was with Bergen Mercy Hospital in Omaha. It is not even existing anymore. It was torn down. They had mold and mildew problems, I guess, and that was after we had gotten married. But it was, one side was like skilled care or like a nursing home. The other side that I worked on, we had like a floor for, at that time, people who had total hips and total knees. They were in the hospital for a week or so, so they came to us for rehab. We had a floor of people with, that were on ventilators. We had a floor of people that were like car accident victims, and they were needing total care. And so it was a variety. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I worked there for, probably 12 years or so. And then met this guy over here and came to Iowa. And I worked, finished up the RN, and then I worked briefly at the nursing home. Well, I worked at the nursing home while I went through school. Yeah, that's what I did. And then I was taking training. I had 1 year to finish up, and then I took my clinicals at Storm Lake, and they really liked me, and I really liked them, and 20-some years later, I'm still there. Yeah. So I worked med-surg and ICU there. I've also worked cardiac rehab and oncology and the oncology and infusion centers where I work now, and I've been there about 12 years. So anyway.
You really feel like your Air Force training was a good base to get you?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. So.
When you went through basic training, did they teach you guns?
We did have one day where we went out to the gun range, and we all shot M16s, and you got, like, there were people who came out of there, like, they got a ribbon for marksmanship. I didn't get one of those ribbons, but it was still fun. It was a fun day. You went through a couple magazines and you had to shoot. But I have, like I said, I was doing some research just on how they're doing basic training today. And today, when they go through that obstacle course, they have to carry their weapon with them. We didn't have to, but they want it more realistic for them. Which I think is actually a really good idea. We had one day where we handled it in basic training. There were some people that, of course, went on and that was their job to deal with that. But that was just my exposure to it. So anyway. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So, yeah, thank you.